I needed solitude to finish my novel. After months of writer's block in my cramped city apartment, I found this beautiful cottage on Airbnb. 2 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and most importantly, complete isolation on 20 acres of Vermont woodland. The listing boasted the perfect writer's retreat, with uninterrupted creative space. The reviews were stellar, mentioning the charming decor and peaceful surroundings. I booked it for a month without hesitation. The first week was exactly what I needed. I established a routine: coffee at sunrise, writing until afternoon, then long walks in the woods. I made incredible progress on my manuscript. The cottage had this beautiful antique desk positioned near a bay window overlooking the forest. It was perfect. The trouble started during the second week. On Tuesday morning, I came downstairs to find my laptop wasn't where I'd left it. Not dramatically moved, just slightly askew, as if someone had bumped it. I chalked it up to my exhaustion from writing late into the night. But then I noticed other things. A half-empty carton of milk I could have sworn was full. My bookmark moved to a different page, a missing apple from the fruit bowl. Small things, easily dismissed. By Friday, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I found crumbs on the kitchen counter I hadn't made. My favorite pen was missing. The bathroom hand towel was damp when I knew I hadn't used it. Each incident was minor, but collectively they were unsettling. I began to feel watched, like someone was monitoring my routine. That night, I heard it. A soft scraping from somewhere in the kitchen while I was trying to sleep upstairs. I told myself it was just the house settling, but the sound was too deliberate, too rhythmic. I lay frozen in bed until morning, clutching my phone, ready to call for help. The next day, I drove 40 minutes to the nearest town and bought a small security camera. I positioned it on the refrigerator, angled toward the pantry where I'd heard the noise. I almost felt silly setting it up, expecting to capture footage of a mouse or some other woodland creature that had found its way in. What I recorded that night will haunt me forever. At 2:17 a.m., the pantry door opened from the inside. Not the main door. A section of the back wall that looked like ordinary paneling slowly swung outward. A man emerged, skeletal thin with matted hair hanging past his shoulders. He wore filthy clothes that hung from his frame. His movements were practiced, cautious. He clearly knew exactly where to step to avoid creaking floorboards. I watched in horror as he methodically went through my food, taking small amounts of everything. A slice of bread, a few crackers, a handful of cereal. He opened the refrigerator, drinking milk straight from the carton. Then he moved to my laptop, scrolling through my manuscript, reading what I'd written that day. He used my hairbrush. He smelled my clothes. Finally, after about 40 minutes, he retreated back through the hidden door in the pantry. With shaking hands, I called the police. They arrived within an hour, armed and cautious. They found him in a crawl space that ran between the walls. A space created when the previous owner had renovated, sealing off a narrow hallway rather than removing it. The man had been living there for months, according to the makeshift calendar scratched into the wall. He had a bedroll, empty food containers, and bottles of water. Most disturbing of all, he had a notebook filled with observations about me. When I woke up, what I ate, passages from my manuscript he particularly liked. I learned later that the current owner had purchased the property just last year and had no idea the space existed. The crawl space didn't appear on any of the house plans. The police think the man was homeless and had discovered the hidden space during the period when the house was vacant between owners. I never returned to the cottage. My belongings were shipped to me. I finished my novel, ironically, a psychological thriller, back in my city apartment. But I still wake up sometimes, heart racing, certain I hear someone moving behind my walls.
Last summer, my wife and I planned what we thought would be the perfect family vacation with our 2 kids, aged 8 and 11. After months of searching, we found this beautiful 3-bedroom house in a seemingly quiet suburb of Portland. The photos showed a spacious backyard, modern kitchen, and even a small pool. The reviews were sparse but positive, and the price was surprisingly reasonable. Our first red flag should have been the host's insistence that we arrive after dark to avoid traffic. We pulled up around 9 p.m., the kids half asleep in the back seat. The house looked just like the photos, but something felt off about the neighborhood. Curtains twitched in windows as we unloaded our luggage. That night, I woke to my wife shaking me around 2 a.m. "Listen," she whispered. Outside was the unmistakable sound of air hissing from tires. I only caught a glimpse of someone in dark clothing disappearing between houses. Morning revealed all 4 tires slashed with a handwritten note: "Leave." I called the host, who seemed unsurprised and offered a weak excuse about neighborhood kids playing pranks. He promised to send someone to fix the tires but advised us not to make a big deal about it. While waiting, an elderly woman approached from across the street. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Nothing good happens in that house." When I asked what she meant, she just walked away. Throughout the day, neighbors watched us, from windows, from cars, from porches. My wife wanted to leave immediately, but with no car and the kids excited about the pool, I convinced her to stay one more night. The second day, 3 different neighbors approached with similar warnings. One specifically asked if we had used the home's Wi-Fi, telling us not to, for our own good. By evening, we kept blinds closed and stayed inside. On the 3rd morning, we were eating breakfast when a brick smashed through the window. Attached was a bag containing photographs, surveillance-style shots of other families who had stayed in the house. In some photos, people were circled in red. Written across one, "We watch everyone." We packed up and called police. One officer explained that the house had been a notorious drug den years ago. A violent raid had resulted in arrests and 1 death. The neighbors still associated the property with criminal activity. "This happens every time," the officer said. "Owner lists it, renters arrive, neighborhood scares them off." We checked into a hotel while our tires were repaired. I filed complaints with Airbnb and the local tourism board. The real horror came 2 weeks later. Fraudulent charges appeared on both credit cards. Someone had hacked the home's Wi-Fi network despite our limited use. We're still dealing with identity theft months later. Sometimes I wonder about those circled families in the photos. The listing has disappeared from Airbnb, but I often wonder if it's resurfaced elsewhere, waiting for the next unsuspecting family. For our 5th anniversary, I surprised my wife with a weekend getaway at this picturesque A-frame cabin in the Poconos. The listing had perfect reviews: charming, private, romantic. Exactly what we needed after months of stress at work. The photos showed a beautiful stone fireplace, a hot tub on the deck, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a serene forest. It seemed perfect. When we arrived on Friday evening, the cabin was even more beautiful than the pictures. The host, Daniel, greeted us personally, giving us a quick tour before handing over the keys. He seemed friendly but mentioned several times how he had invested heavily in the property's security and pointed out various sensors and alarms. At the time, it seemed like he was just protecting his investment. That first night, Rebecca and I opened a bottle of wine and settled in front of the fireplace. Everything was perfect until she went to take a shower. I was pouring another glass when she came out wrapped in a towel, looking disturbed. "There's something weird in the bathroom vent," she said. I followed her in, and she pointed to a tiny black dot in the center of the vent cover above the shower. I stood on the toilet to get a closer look and noticed the dot had a faint blue glow around it. My stomach dropped. I carefully unscrewed the vent cover to find a miniature camera, no bigger than a pencil eraser, connected to a small transmitter. "Maybe it's just for security," I said, but we both knew it wasn't. Heart pounding, I began examining every vent, light fixture, and smoke detector in the cabin. Behind the bedroom mirror, inside the ceiling fan, even in the reading lamp by the bed, we found 7 more cameras, all strategically positioned to capture the most intimate areas of the cabin. The worst was a pinhole camera aimed directly at our bed. I called the police immediately. While waiting, I checked the cabin's Wi-Fi network on my laptop and discovered the cameras were actively streaming to an external server, The officers arrived within 20 minutes and were disturbing efficient at finding an eighth camera we had missed, hidden in the hot tub controls. When confronted, Daniel arrived at the cabin looking surprisingly calm. He claimed the cameras were standard security measures that he forgot to mention in the listing. But when the officers checked his phone, they found an app connecting directly to the camera feeds. Further investigation revealed he had been recording guests for over 3 years. The real horror came weeks later during the investigation. Police discovered Daniel wasn't just recording, he was live streaming to a subscription website with over 300 paying members. The site advertised real couples in real intimate moments, with a catalog of previous recordings categorized by acts and guests' physical attributes. Our faces had been blurred in the preview thumbnails, but everything else was visible. It's been 6 months since our romantic getaway. Rebecca still covers every vent and unplugs every smoke detector in hotel rooms. I've deleted all our social media accounts after finding our names in a file on Daniel's computer, with notes about how he had selected us based on our anniversary posts. Apparently, he particularly targeted anniversary couples for their premium content potential. Sometimes I still wonder how many other cabins like this exist, and how many unsuspecting couples are being watched right now. Most disturbing of all, how many of those recordings are still circulating online, forever beyond our reach. Some stories stay with you long after they end. And this is just the beginning. Subscribe to Abyssal Horror TV for true disturbing stories that drag you into the darkness. Hit the like button and don't forget to turn on the bell, because you never know what horror awaits next.